What's up, guys? We're live again, keeping it real. So the convoy has been at it for a matter of weeks now. They've been all perched in Maryland, driving down around the freeway around DC. For a long time, they were too afraid to enter into DC. Well, now in recent days, they've finally gotten up the boldness to go into DC with their trucks. They're meeting with lawmakers, and now DC police is cracking down, actually blocking entryways into the metro, try to prevent these truckers as their boldness grows. We're going to get into some of the details of that and look at video of that happening, as well as talk about big tragedies for journalism in Ukraine. 4 American journalists have been hit by gunfire. 2 of them died, and a Ukrainian journalist who was helping Fox News, working with Fox News, has died as well. So 3 journalists' deaths, 2 serious injuries just in the past 3 days. What is going on? We're going to get into some of the details surrounding that. I'm also going to talk about the Russian journalist who went rogue yesterday and went viral, called out the fake news in Russia live on air, super similar to what I did when I called out Fox live on air. And there's all kinds of theories swarming around what she's really up to. But apparently she was arrested. She's now been released, but she's been fined. We're going to get into some of those details, as well as talk about how China and Russia are both going on the offensive against the U.S. in different ways, very interesting ways. You will not believe what China is putting out about the U.S. Crazy. I mean, I was actually laughing. And then Russia's going on offense by sanctioning members of the U.S., specific high-up people such as Joe Biden, Jen Psaki, Hillary Clinton, Hunter Biden. We'll get into that as well. So looks like you guys can hear me okay. Cool. So before we jump into it, got to shout out the sponsor of my coverage, which is this little thing right here. So stop what you're doing and check this out. 18,000 weapons were given to reservists in Kiev. These guns were delivered with ammunition and were distributed to hold back the Russian invasion, with more firearms coming. Our country's own Second Amendment is one key reason why we don't have to be worried about being invaded. This is why I highly recommend the Second Amendment Pocket Watch. Second Amendment Pocket Watch is exactly an excellent way to show support for American gun rights while adding a new accessory to your everyday carry. The best part about this offer is that it's absolutely free. Just handle shipping. If you support Second Amendment, you and your family will love it. Get the Second Amendment Pocket Watch for free plus shipping for the next 24 hours by going to www.supportthesecond.com, supportthe2nd.com. It's linked right down below in my description. It's pretty cool, actually. I really like it. Pops right open. There's the clock face right there, and it says Second Amendment on the front. I think I'll wear it. Free plus shipping. Link down below. All right, guys. Let's get into this insanity. Let me show you what's going on in DC as these truckers. I talked to the organizers, like, guys, is this gonna make a difference when you guys aren't even entering DC? You're literally on the beltway, way out on the freeway, mixed in with other traffic going around DC. Like, is this gonna do anything? And well, now they're finally entering DC. Maybe they weren't getting enough attention. It sounds like some lawmakers actually invited them in to meet in DC. I mean, first they were meeting with Senator Ron Johnson and Ted Cruz. Now they're meeting. Jim Jordan has gotten involved, as well as another lawmaker from Missouri. But let me see if I can show you this. So here's what's going on. Police divert People's Convoy away from downtown DC. There's not a lot of news coverage of this, but Washington Post has picked it up. A dump truck blocked their route on one of the interstates, it says. District police blocked a key interstate highway ramp to divert a group of protesting truckers away from downtown DC Tuesday, redirecting them instead onto another freeway rather than allowing them to cross the river and head on roads closer to the center of the city. Participants in the People's Convoy, who've been driving around the district to protest the government's response to the pandemic, were greeted by a dump truck blocking their route. Once on the freeway, off ramps, including one towards Pennsylvania Avenue, were blocked by police. Here I have the People's Convoy. This is their official Facebook page with over 300,000 followers. Facebook finally gave up on deleting Convoy pages because it would just cause the next page to grow more. So they've got this Convoy page. They've been live streaming their routes around the metro. This live stream that shows what's going on for some reason isn't playing on this browser. I mean, it's very peculiar, but Brian Braze, if I'm saying his name right, he's been a key facet of this convoy. He's been interviewed on Fox News and Newsmax. He's posting about this blockade. He says the DC Metro Police leadership has decided that you, as Americans, do not have the First Amendment rights. Today, they purposely escalated the situation. The leadership of the department has lied to me on the phone and denied Americans their right to peacefully assemble. Shame on the DC Metro leadership. Your freedoms do not exist any longer in our capital city. On another note, the men and women behind the badge support us. It's their leadership that's the problem. And he has pictures here of the blockades from police. Now, one of those pictures is the actual live stream that I was trying to show you guys. Let me bring up that live stream on the Chrome browser. I think it'll play then because it actually shows these people trying to get through these blocked roads here. Yeah, I think it'll play here.
They got the road in front of us blocked, guys. Yep.
Road blocked.
Let me see if I can get a picture of that. I want to show these guys what they did. Can you take the camera over to your side and show them up there?
They shut it down.
Thank you. They got it blocked. So DC residents are paying for all the manpower and overtime. Exactly. Maybe they will start to say something. Let me see what gets up in front of you guys. I'm gonna put you guys back on here. So if you know anybody that lives in DC and that's get pissed off because we're doing this and they can't get to where they want to go, tell them to call the reps and the state or end it and make sure it doesn't happen again. Yeah, they shut it down. Wish we were there. Thank you for taking us along with you. We love it that you guys are here. Oh, look, they got a dump truck in there, too.
Snowplow.
Oh, with the snowplow on it. It's time for them to bring out that heavy equipment that they brought.
Watch this. Video. I'm going to give them a salute.
No, you just wave nice. Thanks, guys.
Good job.
It's a really
another big truck over there with a car.
All right, everybody stay tight.
Thank you.
Give them away. They were
Thumbs up from the officer.
so there you go. Police are yes men.
Look at these cops up there on the overpass, guys. We've got them scrambling.
The cops are everywhere now because these people finally got emboldened to go closer to DC. Now, the cops are yes men, right? Because Brian Braze, organizer with Freedom People's Convoy, is saying, oh, the officers themselves love us, yet the officers themselves are the ones blocking you, shutting you guys down. So cops are yes men. I want to hear from some cops who aren't yes men. And that's very interesting to these guys saying, the convoy themselves is saying, oh, the officers are wonderful. It's their leadership that sucks. Well, the officers are just as bad as their leadership if they're taking the commands of their leadership, but secretly saying, we love you. That's cowardly. Get out of there, cops. Get out of there. Okay, so that's what's happening in DC right now. It was Senator Josh Hawley who is the big proponent of the convoy as well. So we got Ted Cruz, Ron Johnson, Jim Jordan, and Josh Hawley. Those are the ones I know of so far who have met with these convoy organizers and said, hey, we love what you guys are doing. And we are here for it as far as getting rid of some of the government overreach that you guys are protesting. So they have some momentum forming. Actually, in that live stream, they mentioned a Democrat just came on their side as well. So momentum is forming and DC police is reacting. In other news, across over in Ukraine, I mean, big tragedy as far as journalism goes, because we've got 4 of our own American journalists hit by gunfire in Ukraine. It's like, what is going on? Here's the latest. The latest today is that this photojournalist, cameraman, Pierre, not sure how to say his last name, has been killed in Ukraine. It appears that the gunfire happened yesterday, and he and his reporter were both hit, as well as the woman that they were working with. Now, he had just taken this selfie with his team right before he died. He was working with Benjamin Hall. Here's Benjamin Hall's Twitter account. Wow, there he is. Benjamin Hall was hit with gunfire. Now, Daily Beast is reporting that he's lost part of his leg. It sounds like he's in very serious condition. Someone said he's in critical condition. I believe that was Fox News that said he was in critical condition. He's a Fox News reporter, correspondent. And his last tweet, which was yesterday, is in regards to German planes. They're going to be buying up fighter jets made by U.S. firm Lockheed Martin. A parliamentary source said Monday, as part of a major push to modernize the armed forces in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And then he also tweeted, drone from Ukraine that crashed in Croatia carried a bomb. Not clear yet if it's Russian or Ukrainian. So these guys, there are 2 of now 5 journalists who've been hit. This article covers it all. So 3 of the journalists have died. This is all in 3 days' time, from Sunday through today. 5 journalists have been hit by gunfire. 3 of them died. 2 of them pretty serious injuries. And 4 of them were Americans. The 5th was a Ukrainian who was working with the Americans. What the heck is going on, you guys? Now there's conspiracy theories flying about why all these journalists are suddenly getting hit with gunfire. When you see that many journalists hit in that short amount of time, that's extremely unique. I understand that they're in a war zone, right? So there's a chance you're gonna get hit by gunfire. But I just think this is very unique that this many journalists have been hit by gunfire in this short amount of time. And, some people are saying, ooh, like they were reporting too much truth, so they had to be shut down. But this many Americans being hit by gunfire, some are theorizing, is this because someone wants America to activate? Someone wants America to physically get involved in this. I mean, the president of Ukraine, his wife, was just saying yesterday that America is not doing enough. Apparently, she's public enemy number 2 under her husband as far from Russia. She's target number 2. So the Ukrainian president's wife is very afraid, and she wants the U.S. to get involved. And how many American lives would it take for the U.S. to get involved? We've just lost 2 American lives, 2 others seriously injured. But this article lays some of it out. So this is extremely sad. Trey Yangst, I actually know Trey. He's okay, thank God. But the 2 people on either side of him are now dead. So I cannot imagine how he's feeling emotionally. Like, dude, that could have been me. I still haven't found out yet whether Trey was in the car when these guys got hit by gunfire, but his videographer is now dead. And this Ukrainian female journalist next to Trey is now dead. I guess she's some sort of Ukrainian filmmaker who was working with Fox News as a consultant. Her name, Alexandra Sasha Kuvshinova. And then this is the photojournalist from Fox who died. 2 different pictures of him here. And then there's Trey, and he again, Pierre. And then Benjamin Hall. This is Benjamin Hall, who was shot and seriously injured, according to Fox News. And there are reports that he's lost part of his leg. Of course, this is the first journalist we saw lose his life. Craig Renaud, freelance journalist. I guess it was a Ukrainian who found his body out there. He was left behind when his car came under fire, according to his colleague. And his body was left behind. And I saw a tweet from what appeared to be a Ukrainian who tweeted a photo of his body, photo of his passport, and a photo of his press badge, which said New York Times. So he's worked with the New York Times in the past, but he's, I guess he was working with this documentary group called Sugar 23 at the time of his death. So someone on the ground there was like, okay, this journalist is dead, and I'm going to let you guys know through Twitter. It was just so horrific. And here's his colleague, which you guys have probably seen this video of him in the hospital now, talking about how he fled the gunfire. He watched Brent Renaud get hit in the neck with the gunfire, and then they got separated. He got hit as well at the gunfire. I'm not sure where, but there he is in the hospital. It looks like undergoing surgery. And this man, what was his name again? Forget his name, but he is he was wearing a Telemundo lanyard. So, but I believe he's a freelance journalist as well. 2 freelance journalists hit by gunfire on Sunday. And fortunately, this guy who was wearing the Telemundo badge looks like he's going to be okay, but pretty horrible. So I want to talk about where these people got hit. So I actually mapped it out. So they were, everyone, all the journalists who were shot were on the outskirts of Kiev. See, here's Kiev. And Horenka is where the Fox News guys got shot. Suburbs of Kiev. It was Irpin down here where the 2 freelance journalists got shot on Sunday. So Sunday, freelance journalists get hit here, and then Monday, the Fox News team gets hit right here on the Ukraine suburbs. And there's these conspiracy theorists out here. I'm hearing so much, and people are like, well, that's not even where Russia was. Russian forces aren't even in the area where they got hit. So we think that Ukrainians hit these guys, and who knows, it could be Ukrainians or Russians who hit these guys. But where they got shot is where some of the worst war zone is right now. And I have a map of this, but it's the worst the worst area is right. The ground fighting is right in the area. So Kiev is under ground fighting, gunfire right now, and the area just to the west of Kiev is apparently, according to Fox News, an area that's now been secured by Russian forces. And then just to the east, there's advanced areas by Russian forces, but there's a lot going on right in this area. So it's not surprising at all that there'd be bullets flying. And unfortunately, they hit a lot of journalists. It's just very unique to me that this many journalists got hit. Very strange. And obviously they'd be in a civilian vehicle. They probably have some sort of press identification on the vehicle. I mean, I've been around a lot of press. I've been in the press myself for years. And you would typically, I mean, I actually don't know how it is in war zones, but in other areas, you have a little press badge actually in your windshield. But who knows? I'm very curious if they were targeted or not. But check out this update. That city of Irpin, where the first group of journalists were hit by gunfire, has now banned journalists. Journalists banned from Irpin, mayor says. Mayor of Irpin announced that no journalists will be let into Irpin until the area is liberated from the Russians. Markushin, if I'm saying the mayor's name right, claims that the stream of media content from Irpin helps reveal military positions to the Russians, and says the measure is to prevent risking Ukrainian lives. The announcement comes a day after U.S. journalist Brent Renaud was shot dead and another wounded in the frontline suburb of Kiev, which has witnessed some of the fiercest fighting since Russia invaded Ukraine. So the mayor of Irpin does not like journalists. As far as I can tell, he sees the journalists as, whether they intended or not, being on the side of Russia. He sees the journalists as outing key information to the Russians. So did his forces shoot these journalists down? I hope not. And who knows whether it was Russia or Ukraine who shot these journalists. And who knows whether they knew who they were shooting. Maybe it was Ukraine thinking they were firing on Russians, or vice versa. Many, many questions. So that's just very interesting that journalists are banned from a whole city. Now, in keeping on the topic journalists, I'm sure you saw what happened in Russia when the Russian journalist called out the fake Russian news live on air. This is the since I called out Fox live on air last summer, and then April Moss followed my suit, calling out CBS live on air. I haven't seen someone do something like we did until now. And it was Russia calling out the propaganda news. And it's really interesting to me that a lot of Americans, including a lot of people who follow my social media now, are tending to side with Russia after they heard about the biolabs and things, which, look, as far as I can tell, all sides are corrupt in this situation. And the Russian news is fake AF. So for this girl to call it out, I think is great. But there are a lot of theories as to why she really did this and whether it was actually orchestrated by the Russian government and made to look staged. There's theories about this, but this Russian journalist, it says she's now been fined for her anti-war live TV protest. Just in case you guys haven't seen it, let me play it for you.
Западных санкций говорил сегодня Михаил Мишустин. На встрече со своим белорусским коллегой российский премьер подчеркнул, надо усилить сотрудничество в рамках союзного государства, а на совещании в правительстве обсуждали, как сохранить доступность лекарств. Больницы не должны пострадать от введенных Западом ограничительных мер.
So they did a pretty good job. They're cutting away real quick to get away from her. When I called out Fox Live on air, they just kept it on me. I don't know if the guy in the control room was on my side or if they just didn't know what to do. But these Russians were quick. They cut away from her real quick. Anyway, I'm reading that she was interrogated for like 13, 14 hours or something after being arrested. See, Russia doesn't have free press. And so I said, I mean, my reaction to this was like, this woman has so much courage. Now, where are the Americans who have enough courage to do the same? Because Americans won't get arrested. I was never arrested. And people's reaction to me was like, we don't have a free press in America. Because I said, look, we have free press. Russia doesn't. This is the woman with the real courage. She doesn't even have a free press. But Americans are like, haha, Ivory, there's no free press. I get what you're saying. Under corporate media control, the corporations have such a spin and they're so in bed with government entities and whatnot that it really seems like we don't have a free press. But the fact that a journalist can call out their corporation and not get jailed is what I'm talking about when I say we do have a threat of free press left in the US. And if American journalists really have courage, they should be calling out the corrupt propaganda in our media. Okay, there's propaganda in every high up media organization as far as I can see, and definitely is in Russia. And that's what I liked when this woman called it out live on air. And her sign, while it said no war, it went on to say that you're being lied to. Russia's not telling you everything. It's speaking to the Russian citizens on her sign and saying, this is propaganda, don't believe it. So she later went on to say that she's actually, I guess her dad is Ukrainian, her mom is Russian. And so she really, she sees the similarities between Ukrainians and Russians, and she hates to see the conflict. And all she was doing and working for the propaganda news in Russia was peddling more propaganda to pit Russians against the Ukrainians. And she was really freaking sick of the fact that she was participating in the greater division and the greater conflict and hate between the two nations. And so she finally threw in the towel on it, ends up getting arrested for it. But if you search her on Facebook, people are resharing this one post about her saying, whoa, this is the real story on this chick. Her name is Marina Ovsyannikova, if I'm saying that right. This story isn't heroic or brave. For years, Marina was an editor for the First Channel, one of the biggest propaganda channels in Russia. Its co-owner and ideological leader is a master of fake news and propaganda. Marina helped create and spread disinformation, denying the fact of war. But guys, she admits to this. She's saying, yeah, I participated in that, and it sickened me to such an extent. I'm finally calling it out live on air. That's what she said. So it goes on to say a video of her repentance was immediately posted in so-called liberal Russia outlets. In her speech, Marina reiterates the mottos about brotherly nations and doesn't make a single step out of the common propagandist cliches. At the same time, recordings of the news propaganda filmed supposedly by casual viewers appeared on the internet right away, although we do realize casual viewers don't just sit around filming their TV with their phones. Okay, guys, first, how did mine get filmed? I knew I was going to do this, and I had someone film it. I'm sure she did the same thing. Okay, so duh, she had someone film it and then get shared. Even the fact that the largest message on her poster was in English isn't coincidence. They go on to say, it's staged. Its target audience is the West, not Russia. Believing it was live that Marina ran into is naive. The news on the First Channel is not broadcast live. So that's interesting. Actually, my friend April Moss, who called out CBS Live on air, hers wasn't live either, which is so funny. But some of these news outlets get so lazy that you can feed in your video. So you pre-record yourself, you feed it in, and nobody checks it before just putting it on the air. That's what happened with April. Mine was live. But they're saying here that hers supposedly was pre-recorded and staged. It says the goal of this stunt is distracting from the monstrosities and war crimes being committed in Ukraine. reactions on social networks. The number of comments or retweets under posts about Marina significantly exceeded the same figures under posts about the destruction of Ukrainian cities or the killing of civilians. While Marina was doing her bit, civilians were hiding in bomb shelters. Western media constantly publishes articles about the hardships of Russians, about runaways and oppositionists in the regime. This is all part of Russian propaganda, which is now fabricating a crimes of regime narrative. Stand with Ukraine, not with those who are complicit in its destruction. Okay, that's an interesting theory. This is getting reposted a lot by a lot of people on Facebook, but I think I don't know. Supposedly this is Russian propaganda that Marina was actually working with the Russian government to distract all the American media that's been doing such a good job covering the monstrosities in Ukraine. I don't know about that. This previous article I showed you talks about the new law that was passed, where they passed a new law in Russia where now she may have to face serious jail time. And so far, more than 14,000 people have been arrested across cities in Russia for protesting against war. So the new law passed March 4th makes public actions aimed at discrediting Russia's army illegal and bans the spread of fake news or the, quote, public dissemination of deliberately false information about the use of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. So that's a horrible anti-free speech law that was passed in Russia. And my Russian friends, I have Russian friends, and they're like, yeah, this law is real and serious. And Putin's not about individual liberty. So these people who are suddenly siding with Putin, I think that's ridiculous. I don't think what leader can we side with right now? I'm not saying side with, I don't know who to side with, because I know there's a lot of corruption in Ukraine too. My Houston police officer friends who've been on the ground there in Ukraine for years, the reason they've been on the ground in Ukraine for years is to try to root out the old Soviet corruption that's so embedded in that nation. And I have a Russian article here that one of my Russian friends sent me, and I know Americans are like, well, I would believe the Russian, I would believe the stuff about Russia more if we weren't banned from seeing what the Russian media is saying. Americans aren't banned from seeing what the Russian media is saying. I'm reading a Russian article right now that a Russian friend sent me. Yeah, if they send it to you through Facebook, you do get a message like, ooh, this is Russian propaganda, which, like, dude, I know that. And I think most people get that most of the corporate news anywhere is propaganda, but definitely in Russia too. But there's this Russian article talking about a resident of Kiev spoke about the persecution of Russians in Ukraine. It is dangerous to leave the house with a Russian passport. So since the war began in Russia, in Ukraine, since the siege of Ukraine started in February, Russians who are now in Ukraine are in big danger because there's so much hatred from the Ukrainians against the Russians. But actually in eastern Ukraine, we're told that this hatred has been ongoing and that Russians in Ukraine have been persecuted. And I guess that's part of why Putin said he was invading to begin with. But to bomb and kill innocent people is also something that's not cool. Now, if you're taking down biolabs, I think that's good. Biological warfare, yeah, let's get rid of that stuff. But when Putin announced his invasion, he wasn't talking about biolabs. He was talking about the persecution of people in eastern Ukraine. And by the way, the week before he actually opened fire, he was welcoming the evacuation of people in eastern Ukraine into Russia and actually paying them. If they evacuated into Russia, Putin would pay them. It was very interesting. That was a week before the the bombings actually started. But this Russian article, and I'm not going to show it on YouTube because YouTube's super anti-Russian media right now, but it's just it talks about the anti-Russian propaganda being put out by America, specifically by Facebook, which they correctly call Meta now. The Russians are they're talking about how they faced harassment from foreigners because of the special operation the Russians are undertaking in Ukraine. So one of the things that this Russian editor had an issue with that she called out live on air was that, see, Russian media right here where I'm reading, they're calling it a special operation the Russian Federation is undertaking in Ukraine. And I guess they're not being authentic with their Russian citizens that, look, we're bombing the crap out of some of these innocent Russians or innocent Ukrainians. I mean, civilians are dying. I mean, we just lost some American journalists as well. They're showing it on the news right now. Super duper sad. But, and again, we don't know whether it was Russians or Ukrainians or who killed these American journalists. But the Russians are talking about how in this propaganda piece, I mean, Russian state-run media, it's all propaganda, right? But they're talking about like our Russians in Ukraine are super unsafe right now. Like, dude, I bet they are unsafe. Ukrainians are pissed off that you're bombing them. So any Russian that's in your country right now, even if they're an innocent Russian, is probably going to be looked on with scorn. Like, why is your nation bombing us? But they're talking about how lawless the Ukrainian military is and reckless, and how being a Russian, if your Russian passport is seen in Ukraine, you could, there's no telling that a drunk Ukrainian military guy may just decide to take you out right there. So these Ukrainian military guys are running around drunk, according to the Russian media propaganda, which, based on some of the things the American police who were based in Ukraine have told me, that's not so far-fetched, because that's why the police were there. They're trying to create some structure of like, no, if you're law enforcement or military, this is how you act. You don't drink on the job and things like that. And you don't point a gun at a citizen and ask for their money in exchange for wiping out their crime or corrupt things like that. So anyway, that's what's going on. Oh my gosh, my show's going too long again. I'm trying to keep the shows shorter, but guys, there's a lot to get to. Very interesting developments today, especially in regards to China's taking offense. China. So America threw that ball and China intercepted it, and now they're offense on the field going after the U.S., and it's freaking hysterical, actually. So America threw all this at China, saying, you guys are committing human rights violations. We don't know if we can collab on it with you on a lot of stuff. And China's like, oh yeah, well, you're committing human rights violations, America. What are you talking about? So we know that China has the Uyghur concentration camps. China's like, America, you're not allowed to talk about that anymore, because look at what you're doing. And take a look at what Chinese authorities said right here.
There has been an endless string of malicious incidents involving deaths caused by police brutality in U.S. law enforcement. In 2021, over 1,124 Americans died of police violence. Most of the victims were killed by the police in circumstances involving non-violent crimes or even without criminal behavior. The Lancet published a study showing that between 1980 and 2018, around 30,800 people died from police violence, and age-standardized mortality was about 3.5 times higher in black people than white people. There are frequent media revelations about torture, abuse, and violence in various detention facilities in the U.S., including private prisons. The Guantanamo Bay prison is infamous for the systemic abuse and torture of prisoners. The CIA, using the so-called war on terror as a pretext, set up black sites in many countries where the so-called terrorist suspects were secretly held in arbitrary detention, and confessions were extorted by torture. And our spokesperson and many media outlets have made revelations that the U.S. floating prisons aboard 17 Navy ships and network of black sites in countries like Lithuania are more typical examples of how the U.S. prison system wantonly tramples on rule of law and human rights. The U.S. is in no position to claim itself a beacon or defender of human rights, still less to make wanton remarks about other countries' human rights conditions under false pretenses. China calls on Human Rights Council and the Special Rapporteur on torture to pay closer attention to U.S. violation of human rights and urge it to adopt concrete measures to resolve relevant issues.
Wow. So, screw you, America. China's like, what are you talking about? America, you're acting like you're a beacon of human rights when your cops are killing Black people in America. As if China cares so much about Black people. China is one of the most racist nations, and they're locking up the Uyghurs and committing atrocities against them in a concentration camp in China. America tries to call that out, and China's like, you guys are killing Black people in America, and you have Guantanamo Bay. So we really need to investigate America now. So China is investigating America's human rights violations. Way to go on offense, China. Very fascinating. Now, Russia is going on offense in regards to the sanctions. So obviously the U.S. Implemented sanctions against Russia. Well, now Russia is implementing sanctions against the U.S. Breitbart reporting Russia sanctions Hunter Biden, but it's not just Hunter. Breitbart says Russia announced sanctions Tuesday on President Joe Biden and several other prominent Americans, including Biden's son Hunter, who is known for his international deal-making and influence peddling in Ukraine, China, and elsewhere. The sanctions were described by the Russian government as a response to similar sanctions by the Biden administration, which has applied sanctions since Russia invaded Ukraine after removing some Donald Trump-era sanctions last year. And here you can see, this is a statement from the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And the list of U.S. citizens included in the top list is as follows. We got Joseph Robinette Biden, Anthony Blinken, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We got Jen Psaki. I love how they include everyone's middle name. They also have Hillary Diane Rodham Clinton, and of course, Robert Hunter Biden, son of the U.S. president. More announcements will be made soon concerning the expansion of sanctions list to include other top U.S. officials, military leaders, lawmakers. So there you have it. Russia is not cowering. They're back in the face of the United States because they do not take our president seriously, as actually most Americans don't take him seriously either. That's something US and Russia agree on, is that we can't take the US president seriously. So there it is, you guys. Flew through some things. And I hope that you enjoyed the show. I went a little bit long. I'm trying to keep these shows shorter. But we'll have more tomorrow. In the meantime, I'm going to go jump on Next News Network and record some things. So check out Next News Network on YouTube too. But primarily check out my YouTube. Subscribe. Hit notification bell. I'm going to be doing a lot of these. All right. Talk to you later.